Greetings to all. Thank you, dear participants and speaker, for joining the international webinar hosted by South Asia Research Institute for Minorities. The topic of the webinar is Protection of Minority Rights in South Asia, a review of constitutional provisions and challenges of implementation. We hope this webinar will focus on tackling the difficulties associated with constitutional implement and upcoming with the solution for protecting minority rights by the constitutional provisions in South Asia. So my name is Zehra and I will be responsible for hosting this webinar today. And I'm glad to welcome all the speakers. The speakers are Ali Zaidi from India, Dr. Abhay Kumar from India, Kunjani Pyasi from Nepal, and Anubhav Singh from United States, and Asif Aqeel from Pakistan. We are having amazing speakers today, so without any further ado, I will invite our very first speaker, Ms. Kunjani Pyasi. She is a human rights lawyer and advisor, president at Changa Foundation, Nepal. I am happy to have you on board. Pass it on to you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So today I am so much happy to be the part of this discussion today. And basically, as we are talking about the minorities' rights, so my presentations and my experience based on Nepal that I will share today with all of you. So Nepal has been named as progressive countries for minorities because our nation is declared a secular nation in 2006, and after that, we by constitutions we are treating every gender and sexual minorities equally, and constitutions provides the legal framework relating to that. So in 2015, we have promulgated new constitutions, and that constitutions guaranteed the legal rights of the people from every sectors, and every there are various types of fundamental rights given to the people. So basically, we have different rights, different fundamental rights to the children, different fundamental rights to the woman, and Dalit and others' rights, right to religions, are protected under the fundamental law, fundamental rights. So similarly, state directive principles also talks about the social justice, and social justice is also as a common political issues that is used to raise by the political parties. And similarly, we have 33% participation of women is guaranteed in constitution, in legislation. Similarly, in the village and all three ties of the state agencies. So we have three ties of government, and women's and Dalit participation of minorities are guaranteed in constitutions. But if we talk about the practical aspects of that part, we recently faced elections of local level and state level and federal level, but the participations of women as a voter is also decreasing. But we have the more population of women in, if we talk about the populations, we have more population of women, but as a voter we have fewer than men, around 8 lakhs less than men. But statistically we have more female. But similarly, if we talk about the constitutional participation or political participation of women, I want to present some data that is taken from Democratic Research Center. So if we talk about the first past the post system, in total 2,411 candidates, we have 225 women only, which means 9.3% only. Similarly, if we talk about the PR systems, in PR systems, so we have 50% of women who are candidate in federal elections. So basically, when we talk about the minorities, there is always comes with the provisions of reservations. People always used to think that PR system is made for minorities and PR system is made for women, but they are not capable enough to fight for the first past the post system. That is the political, political parties do not trusted the minorities people. Political parties do not trusted the women as they are capable enough. Similarly, we have some reservations to the minorities and Dalit people in in government jobs. But when we talked about that, that came into practice around 12 to 15 years ago, just 12 to 15 years ago. But whenever a woman or Dalit faced any discriminations and they raised voice about that, the first response from non-Dalit or other people came to, they take reservation in the name of Dalits, and they always used to they don't want discrimination. That types of statement is always passed by the other people, and it is taken as a hate speech. So we have basically, as you know, Nepal has the mountains. Nepal has Tarai regions where Madesi people lives. The patriotism of Madesi people is always questioned, as they are never taken as citizens of Nepal by the hilly people or from the others people, because they are taken as Indians, and the issues of nationalities is always raised when we talked about the Madesi people. So citizenship, issues of citizenship is also a very big problem in Nepal, as faced by the Madesi people. So it is very big problem. And whenever we talk about citizenship, the issues of nationality and propaganda of nationalities is always taken as a benefit for political parties. So that is the current situations of Nepal. So when we talked about the participations of gender minorities and disabled, and if we talk about the social justice issues, so in Nepal in 2007, Supreme Court of Nepal has made a verdict that legalized same-sex marriage in Nepal, but that law relating to same-sex marriage is not yet promulgated in Nepal. So we have laws to punish discriminations, laws to protect the rights of the people, laws to protect the minorities' rights. As Nepal is a state party of different human rights treaties. It is a party of core 7 treaties among core 9 human rights treaties of UN. But if we saw the implementation pass, the so-called hierarchical casteism and so-called traditional mindsets and Hindu mindset is also we can see that in while we talked about the actions of when we observe the actions of state. So we do not have holidays for Christmas, but we have a long 15 days long holidays when it is about Thursday. So we can just imagine how state is functioning. Killing cow is a big crime in Nepal than killing other people, because they are not treated as a human. For last 5 years, one Dalit, Ajit Mijaz, his dead body is still for justice in teaching hospital of Nepal. If you see the if you saw the news, 6 to 7 young boys killed in Rukum, Nepal, just because they want to marry a higher class girl in Nepal. So that are the major problem. Constitution try to safeguard the rights of the minorities, but in practice, the state is still in control of people who have a power, people who are ruling in a ruling class, and role of the role of minorities is just like Abhay, the order of the state or the agencies. When minority raise their voice, it is taken as a um, it is taken as a statement against sovereignty. It is the issues of nationality, and they are not even treated as citizens of Nepal. So that is the major problem. Similarly, if we talked about the role of the civil society try to convey some positive role. Of course, they are trying, but the political affiliations of the civil society is a major challenge in Nepal, because political every civil societies is relating to some political parties, and they are like always following the ideology of certain political parties. They are not free. They are not working as a watchdog. They are not working as a human rights watch organizations. They are acting as a part of the political. They are somehow working as a political wings. So that cannot make a serious change in Nepal. So if we saw the legal provision, we used to feel like, oh, Nepal is a very secular country, so it protects the rights of the minorities in the constitutions. But in practice, it is not like that. That is the major problem. I will explain later if needed. Thank you so much.
Extremely wise response. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. So let's welcome the second speaker, Dr. Abhay Kumar. He is a well-known writer, journalist, and social activist from New Delhi, India. Over to you, Abhay.
I have spoken at your platform for several times, and
Yes.
I thank you for remembering me. You know what is happening in India through social media, through newspapers. We have got large populations of minority in India. Generally, when it comes to who are minorities, we tend to say that Muslims are minorities, but this is not the case. Of course, Muslims are minorities, but we have also got other religious communities like Christians, Sikh, and even the Buddhist. And Dr. Bhim Rao Ambedkar, who was a very important person during the anti-colonial movement, the messiah of the rights of the marginalized, and he played very important role in making of India's constitution. Baba Sahib Ambedkar at the time of making of Indian constitutions wrote a small pamphlet which is called States and Minorities. States and Minorities. And Ambedkar wrote this pamphlet to be submitted to the Britishers, and he was very much concerned about the rights of marginalized community. What are they going to get it? And that pamphlet, you could say that it was Ambedkar's constitution. It was Ambedkar constitutions. And in that Ambedkar's own constitution, State and Minorities, you could find it easily on internet. I think it is there in Ambedkar's volume number 1. In that a small pamphlet, he said that minorities are not only religious communities. Anybody who is marginalized historically, socially, discriminated, like Dalits and other marginalized groups, they could also be called minorities. So I agree with what Ambedkar has said, because people are not discriminated only on the basis of religion. People are discriminated on the basis of caste also, on the basis of gender also, race also. So I think this is my understanding, and many people would argue with me that we have to create a broader platform as far as minority questions is concerned. Many people tend to think that, oh, Muslims' problems are very different from Dalits' problem, and Dalits' problems are very different from, let's say, gender problem. No, somehow the caste-based society and class-based society, they are creating this problem, and somehow they are also interested, the ruling classes are also interested that Muslims should perceive that, oh, Dalits are getting too many favors by the state because they are somehow Hindus, and Muslims should feel that, okay, Muslims are given a special status as a minority, and we are being discriminated because upper caste people are more comfortable with Muslims than the Dalits. So I also tend to hear people in India that some people argue, you tell me which is the most marginalized community, it is Dalits or it is Muslims? And my argument is both are marginalized. Marginalization and its manifestation may be very different from one community to another community. I will give you one example. If you look at jobs, particularly government sector, you will find that the conditions of Dalits are better than the conditions of Muslim, because in our system, Indian system, Dalits are given reservation around 15%. It is another matter that that 15% reservation is not implemented all the time, and the Brahminical forces create one hurdle after another, and then so many jobs are now being privatized, so number of jobs is going down. But still, since Muslims do not have what should I say, a bigger constitutional protections, we have to also keep in mind that Muslims in India, 80% of Muslims are included under OBC category. So OBCs are given 27% reservation. OBCs are given 27% reservations. So Muslims can get reservations through that OBC category. And one thing we have to also keep in mind, that all Muslims are not given reservations in India. 80%, around 70 to 80% Muslims are given reservation. Those who are upper caste like Sheikh, Sayyid, Pathan, they are excluded. But what is happening, that Muslims, because of their economic and social backwardness, they are not able to get more seats through OBC reservation. And also some kind of systemic discrimination is also going against them. So the point is that when it comes to public sector, jobs at public sector, and maybe the state of higher education, you will find that Muslims are doing not better than Dalits. In other words, Dalits are doing better than Muslims. But that cannot be criteria to say, okay, Dalits are better and Muslims are backward. In another case, you will find that Muslims are more targeted because of their religious identity in India. And Muslims are also demonized all the time by the communal forces in India, because it is helping them to consolidate Hindu votes. Muslims have got cultural capital. So you will find in cinema, you will find in, let's say, in other cultural institutions, music, or maybe some professor, prominent scholars and writers, they will be more from the Muslims community than the Dalit community. You will find many landlords also from Muslims community, but you will find very less number of landlords from the Dalit community. So my argument is that Dalits and Muslims are both exploited, and it is the agenda of the state to create confusion, to pit one community against another community. So this is very important thing. We must try to work for, what should I say, building or creating the unity of oppressed, And one thing we have to also keep in mind, that many Muslim scholars in India also argue that Dalits have joined Hindutva party. But I would say it is true that a section of Dalits are voting for the Hindu right majoritarian party in India. But it is also true that a section of Muslim middle class and those who are petty, what should I say, the petty businessman, they are also going and they are also joining BJP and Hindutva party for their own selfish interest. And I have written one article recently. I have tried to argue that not all Muslims, not majority of Muslims are going for the Hindutva party, but since the Hindutva forces, since they are in power, they have got control over all the resources, so they can win over a section of Muslim, and that Muslims community, that Muslim small sections, the upper middle class, they are creating this confusion that what is the harm Muslim joining BJP? What is the harm? Because the secular parties have not done enough thing for them. So my argument is that, okay, you are right that the previous secular government has not done justice to Muslim. There are many problems which were created by them. It is true that Muslims were targeted in anti-Muslim riots when secular parties were ruling over them. But to equate secular parties and communal parties, that is not true, because the communal parties have their history that they have always opposed minority. Their politics is based on anti-Muslim agenda. And here I want to quote Savarkar. Savarkar was a mentor, who was a philosopher, who was a thinker of Hindutva group. He organized people against the British Empire in his earlier phase, but later he became loyal with the British government. He wrote Maafinama, apology letter to them, and in 1920s he wrote a pamphlet which is called Hindutva, and he has defined that who are Hindus, what is Hinduness, what is Hindutva. And his argument is very simple, that Christians and Muslims are not Hindus because their places of worship, their holy lands are not located in so-called subcontinent in India. They are located in Palestine and they are located in Arabia. That is why their loyalty is questioned. And he has also said one very important thing that people forget it, that the unity of Hindu community can only be achieved by creating an external enemy. So my argument is Hindutva forces cannot survive without creating and maintaining a ghost of external enemy. And my argument is, who is external enemy? External enemy are always exploiting classes, those who do not want to give justice, those who are taking your rights. So if I work in land and if I do not give wages, if I am attacked, who is attacking? A person belonging to Dalit caste is not attacked by Muslim. He is attacked by landlord. And landlord can be both Hindus and Muslim. If I work in a factory and if I am being exploited, I am not being exploited by Hindus and Muslim. I am exploited by the owners of the factory, and that owners can be both Hindus and Muslim. And in India, since economy resources are monopolized by a section of people and they happen to belong to majority community. I know there are also a small section of exploiting classes among Muslims also, but Hindus and majority community are more responsible for unequal structure. So if I meet Savarkar today, I will say, sir, it is not Muslim who is enemy of people of India, who is enemy of let's say marginalized people. It is the rich and affluent class within our own community which is exploiting us. But what is the problem with the Hindutva forces? Since they are being funded by landlords, since they are funded by capitalist forces, they cannot say that you are responsible because they are militia on their behalf. So they have to create an external enemy. So Muslim becomes external enemy for them. And this is the whole agenda, that you create Muslim as an enemy and you do politics here. So this is the big contradiction in Indian political system, that we have got somehow a liberal constitution, a secular constitution. We can have more and more provisions for the minorities that we are not denying for the marginalized community. But somehow we have got good constitution. On the other hand, the forces, the social forces, they are anti-Muslim, they are anti-minorities, they are anti-Dalits, and this contradiction is very much in place since our independence. It has not gone there. And I am telling you, generally we try to create a binary between secularist forces and communalist forces, those who believe in secular ideology and those who believe in communal ideology. But it is very sad that even the secular parties are not doing justice. You know it very well that Rahul Gandhi of the Congress party, he is taking a yatra. He is going from one place to another place, from Kanyakumari to Kashmir. He is on a tour. Okay, he is walking through the country, and he is saying that my agenda is to spread love, and the agenda of Hindutva forces are to spread hatred. So he is saying that I am champion of the politics of love, justice, and Hindutva forces are champion of hatred and violence. But this is also true that the Congress ruled a state, that is Chhattisgarh, which was earlier the part of Madhya Pradesh central provinces. In that state, Christians are being attacked. And in one press conference, he was being asked, a journalist, that sir, you are talking about love, you are talking about justice, but in your own state, minorities are being attacked. What is your reply? You know what Rahul Gandhi has said? Rahul Gandhi, instead of taking this question seriously and saying that yes, something is going wrong, let's go to Chhattisgarh, first give justice to minorities, he is basically saying, he said that can you ask the same questions to Prime Minister? What is this nonsense? What is this nonsense? If I have come to seek justice because your government is in power, is it the right way to say, why are you coming to me? Go to that person, ask justice there. That is also very sad situations, I am telling you. There are many people who, out of their selfish interest, they are praising uncritically Bharat Jodo Yatra. But my point is not that. I support secular politics. I am completely against communal forces. I want secular parties to come to power. That is no doubt. But I also want what kind of secularism you are going to promote if you do not stand for the rights of the minority. Now, you have to also keep in mind that these days Rahul Gandhi is in Jammu and Kashmir. You know what a statement he has given yesterday? He yesterday gave the statement that the Congress party is for giving a statehood to Jammu and Kashmir. But he has not said that the special status which was given to Jammu and Kashmir, that should be restored. So you have to also keep in mind that his talk of mohabbat and love and Bharat Jodo Yatra, that is also not being informed by substantive politics. It may be better than those who are going out in the street, hitting people, attacking minorities, hurting people. It may be an inch better than that politics, but it is also not going towards doing full justice to minorities. Friends, let me conclude by saying it that situations in India is not very satisfactory. Why? Because a state has rolled back from its responsibility of social welfare. In our constitution, we have got several provisions where the constitution is talking about socialist and welfare state. But what is happening? The government, in order to give more and more benefits to rich classes, it is going back from its social responsibility. I think many Indians are feeling proud that Indian economy has become, I think, third or fourth or fifth in the world. I think one industrialist from India has become richest person, maybe the third richest person or fourth richest person. So yesterday, some friends were talking about the same thing, that Indian economy has become 5 trillion. One of my friends has asked, okay, if Indian economy has become 5 trillion, how much money you have got as an individual, as a citizen? We have got nothing. We do not have money to buy even the rice and vegetable, but economy has become great. Economy has become big. So this is big contradiction, I am telling you. It is, you can take the image of a person whose belly is increasing, but health is decreasing. The economy is becoming oversized, but the health, the overall health is not good. Obesity, I would like to say, Indian economy is like a person who is fat, who is in obesity, that you look very big, but the overall health condition is not good, because majority of the people are suffering, jobs are not there, a state is not doing anything or not doing much on social responsibility, and Now, many economists are talking about that this government is only working for 3 and 4 big corporate houses. There is a tendency, there is a state of crony capitalism in India where only few people, some Gujaratis businessmen, some Gujarati political leaders, they are coming together. You have to also keep in mind that the scholarship for the minorities, for the Muslims and other minority groups are being rolled back. This is very sad. This is very sad that it has been rolled back. You know that Indian government used to give a scholarship to minorities, and the minorities include Muslims, Christians, Buddhists. Also, that a scholarship, a pre-matric scholarship was rolled back. Even Maulana Azad National Fellowship, which was given to minorities in higher education, that was rolled back. And you know what is the argument given? It is being given that government has launched other scheme, that a scheme is benefiting everybody, so we do not need any special scheme. That is not right. See, in the name of equality, you cannot do away with the minority rights. Why? Because if you take away minority rights, the equality principle will favor in majority community. Those who are powerful, they will get benefit. So we have to have a special provisions. I would like to give the example in bus. If you do not reserve the seats for women, elderly person, sick person, then to say that whosoever enters the bus are allowed to take the seat, there is an equality principle. So what will happen? The strong will go, the young will go, and they will take the seat, and old persons will never take the seat. So in India, what is happening, that in the name of equality, that is very great when you hear it first time, majoritarian politics is being played. That is very sad, but I always believe that the struggle of any particular region has to be fought by the people of their own region. So we are fighting. We will fight Indian Muslim, Indian Dalits, Indian Christians. They are fighting. We are proud Indians. At the same time, we are also fighting those exploiting classes in our own country, and we extend our solidarity to other marginalized group in other area. And I think this is the very purpose of this platform, that we should get to know about each other. We should extend our solidarity. But no, I think Masiha will come to solve your problem. Even in Quran also, in Holy Book is also written that you have to take the lead, you have to fight against your own exploitation, and then Almighty will help you. So Indian Muslims, Indian Hindus, Indian Christians, Indian Dalits, they are all proud Indians. They are all nationalists. They all believe in equality, and we are fighting our own battle. And I thank our brother, our sister across South Asia, that our history, our food, culture, our other lifestyle, our problems are very much shared. And let's build some kind of solidarity. Let's know each other's conditions, and let's inspire each other's struggle for justice, for equality. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Very insightful answer, I must say. Thank you very much. Moving to our very potential speaker, Anubhav Singh. He's a Dalit activist and independent researcher from United States. Welcome, Anubhav. I am interested in hearing your opinions. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. And like Abhay said, I agree with most of what Abhay has talked about vis-a-vis what is happening in India. And when I first heard of this topic about the constitutional provisions about the protection of minorities, I actually had two questions in mind. One was, who is a minority? Like, how has the Indian Constitution defined who is the minority? And secondly was, how this liberal order or the liberal consensus which came about in the aftermath of the partition of South Asia, particularly in India, has entrenched a form of political mobilization which is based on constructed identities, leading to the entrenchment of violence within public spaces. and political spaces. So, I mean, yes, the Indian Constitution is a liberal document. It does afford a lot of accord a lot of rights as far as religious minorities are concerned. They have the right to equality, the right to practice their freedom, establish their own religious institutions. They have the right to constitutional remedies. But like Ambedkar said, that a constitution is only as good as the executive or the people who are implementing it. In this regard, and this is, of course, the eve of India's Republic Day, tomorrow being the 26th of January, when the Constitution came into force. Let's first start with 3 warnings that Ambedkar came up with in the Constitutional Assembly. First, and then I would talk about how each of these warnings, or have sort of come true, or in the aftermath of the coming up of the liberal state in India. The first thing that Ambedkar talked about was the usage of constitutional methods of achieving social and economic objectives, abandoning the path of revolution and non-constitutional methods for achieving social justice. The second he talked about was that, not to lay our liberties at the feet of a great man or to trust him with power which enable him to subvert their institutions. And the third that he talked about was that let us not be just content with the establishment of a political democracy. Rather, political democracy would always be incomplete unless it is accompanied by the development of a social democracy. Political democracy could not last or cannot last unless there lies at the base of it social democracy. Now, the problem is, one of the points Abhay touched briefly on was, of course, the liberal idea of the Constitution and the liberal consensus. My point is that the very same liberal consensus which came into being after 1947, or which is often called as the Nehruvian Indian state, lay down the seeds of what we are actually witnessing today in India. What do we mean by social democracy? So Ambedkar said that, on 26th of Jan, 1950, we would be entering a life of contradictions where we would have equality in social and economic life, but we would have political equality, but not social or economic inequality. And Ambedkar's point was, how long would democracy last until these contradictions were resolved? So in the aftermath of the Nehruvian state, the reason why I'm discussing this is to understand the context in which the Indian Constitution came up and how actually the idea of a liberal state was imposed on that of a feudal base, that of India. So the very superstructure of Indian democracy, where the forces and relations of production are being defined by that liberal consensus, the roots of which actually lay in extreme inequality, further worsened, of course, by the liberal state, which came into being in 47. Not to say that everything that the liberal state achieved was, in contradiction to the idea of equality of freedom. But one must also remember that the equality, or rather the economic equality that the system focused on rather, could only be achieved through the support of the dominant classes and the dominant castes. For example, land reform movements were left full of loopholes so that the bourgeois class could evade land ceilings. The Green Revolution, which was carried out in partnership with the rich and middle peasants or farmers, came to dominate the rural scene, and which enabled the country maybe to become sufficient in food grain production, but at the cost of exacerbated landlessness, rural poverty, and caste violence. So in cultural and social terms, what happened in the aftermath of the liberals coming of the being of the liberal state was the largely upper caste Hindu middle class was identified with the idea of the nation. No, it continued that troubled legacy of the South Asian nationalist movement, particularly vis-a-vis India, that the universalist unmasked view of this particular class was adequate to speak for the marginalized communities, and any autonomous assertion of identity by any religious community or those of the marginalized castes would be seen as nothing but a threat to the idea of India or this nation, and thus this assertiveness was deemed communal. The result of this, we see that there is almost minimal representation of Muslims and Dalits in law enforcement, bureaucracy, and judiciary, particularly when we are still following the colonial era laws, the aim of which was to nothing but to preserve the monopoly on power of the state. And the neoliberal order of the 90s not only weakened labor movements and it breached the social contract between the citizens and the state, it also enforced the Brahminical hierarchy around which this idea of Indian nationhood revolved. For example, let's talk about Gujarat and Rajasthan, and why the context is important is that and where the constitution actually has lacked is that despite giving assurances to Indian minorities, having protective, having abolished untouchability and having protective conditions, what happened was actually, particularly in Gujarat and Rajasthan, in the aftermath of the neoliberal era, we see that, there was large-scale migration of Muslim workmen and migration of Dalits to particularly the area which lay outside Gujarat and Rajasthan, right? So this idea of urban segregation between caste and classes, right, was responsible for entrenching a particular kind of mindset wherein somewhat similar to what the British had done, that is introducing competition or a competition for resources within secular public spaces. And the result of this exploitative nature of work, which was, the weakening of labor laws, the rolling back of the state from providing welfare, it resulted in caste rights, first of all, in Gujarat, right? Now, those caste rights, after a while, turned into communal rights, what we call, instead, it would be better to use the term, pogrom, because this is not a case of balanced guilt, as it is, as most of India's judiciary or India's executive or, the Indian system plays it out to be. This violence, which changed in the aftermath of neoliberalism and growing inequality, was disproportionate. Whether be it caste violence, whether be it violence on, marginalized Muslim castes, which live next doors to Dalits. And it was in these social crevices that, Hindutva forces seeped in, establishing patronage channels vis-a-vis the lower castes, which not only widened the economic gulf, but also played into this colonial fantasy of looking at things through a communal binary lens. It would be surprising. It's kind of surprising to know that the very idea of who a Hindu is actually a very negative definition in the constitution. Anyone who is not deemed to be a Muslim or a Sikh or a Buddhist is deemed to be Hindu. So what this Hindu identity, which itself was a product of colonial historiography, which was, swallowed hook, line, and sinker by the Hindu forces, for the maintenance of Brahmanical hegemony, has now deconstructed the link between representation and power. So that is why you see that the representation of Muslims in state assemblies, parliament has gone down drastically, right? The presence of Muslims and Dalits in bureaucratic structures, in the structures of power, is absolutely minimum, particularly not just the IAS or the IFS, but also within media, the fourth pillar of Indian democracy. And when the state started rolling back these welfare measures, which are discussed quite in depth in Part 4 of Indian Constitution, that is the directive principles of state policy, of establishing equality and saving work and saving the working class from exploitation. It was these social programs by the RSS which shaped this idea of nationalism within the cultural sphere, which again was an extension of the colonial project, which stated that it was only the idea of Brahmanical Sanskritic tradition which could define Indian culture, in collaboration with the bourgeois forces which exploited caste labor, enforcing graded inequality. Hindutva as such, now as Abhay pointed out, that there has been, that we cannot say that it is not the OBCs or the Dalits who have not bought into this idea of Hindutva. Of course they have, but it is very different, this idea, as compared to what India's upper middle class, upper castes believe in, right? So if you notice, the directive principles of state policy talked about strong labor laws. What actually has happened in the aftermath of neoliberal consensus or the neoliberal era, which came into being after the 1980s, which simultaneously coincided with the ascendance of Hindutva forces, culminating in the demolition of the Babri Masjid in 1992. So this cultural capital or this cultural movement, which actually started in the aftermath of the neoliberal era, actually came into being with the support of India's big bourgeois capital, which until then had not played a very important role vis-a-vis the industrial development of India, because the primary responsibility of developing, or rather the development, lay with the state. And in this graded inequality, we see that the capture of the Indian state by, I would rather not use the word communal forces, but it would be appropriate to say that capture by what Marx talks about, the state captured by Indian elites. And thus, when we talk of Hindutva, it is also very important to keep in mind what its relationship with the state is and has been, and how that has transformed Indian society. Whereas until the 1980s or 1990s, right, beginning from the colonial era, it was the state which had monopoly on violence. Since the 1990s, that monopoly of violence has not been deconstructed, but rather devolved into certain militia groups enjoying the patronage of the Indian state. And when I say Indian state, by all means, I mean not just the BJP, also by the Indian National Congress. So, and similarly, when we talk of the constitutional protections which have been offered to the marginalized communities in India, particularly what we call the right to constitutional remedies, that is Article 32 of the Indian Constitution, wherein you can approach the Supreme Court for the reinstatement of any of your rights, your fundamental rights rather, has not come to fruition. for the marginalized people. Of course, one of the reasons is that there is the prohibitive costs of legislation, but also has been the construction of this identity or this idea of the other vis-a-vis the Indian state that has somehow threatened this hegemony of Brahminical forces. So, for example, how entrenched violence is and how the kind of support that it has got, not from the Indian executive, but also from Indian judiciary, is very obvious when you talk of a massacre in Bihar called Bathani Tola, where an entire village the men of an entire Dalit village in Bihar were shot to death in cold-blooded murder because they had refused to, till the lands of the landlord class in Bihar. That is whom we call bhumiyars, or the owners of the land. 26 years after this massacre, every single person who was responsible for this was deemed to be not guilty by the Indian judiciary system. Right? This is the kind of capture which in essence has protected this graded inequality or this graded hierarchy through very subtle discrimination against India's marginalized communities. A major part of people who are imprisoned actually consists of Muslims and Dalits without any recourse to constitutional remedies as such. So that is something to be kept in mind, that despite the Indian constitution being a liberal constitution, came into being in the aftermath of colonialism, and in some ways has extended that monopoly of state power in modern India, where there has been absolutely no devolution of power to the marginalized communities, particularly Muslims and lower caste Muslims. And it is a capacious or a very far-sighted document which has been appropriated by marginalized groups like Dalits, or you can talk about also LGBT minorities, while the upper middle class has never accepted completely the idea of constitution being the supreme law of the country. What is very interesting is that a few years ago, a Pew survey was carried out in South Asia, where the largest democracy in the world, the respondents of the largest democracy in the world, actually voted in favor of having martial law in India. Can you imagine the largest democracy that respondents in a poll which asks people if they love their democratic rights or the kind of regime that they would like to have in place? India had the largest number of people which said that we would prefer martial law. So that has been the bane of India's, implementation of constitution, that this idea of, devolution of power was never completely accepted by this elite class. This is appropriately labeled by John Ra as, a revolt of the upper castes against the Indian constitution. What is this? One more point that should also be remembered is that the constitutions of both India and later Pakistan came out in the backdrop of the fear of balkanization of respective countries, which resulted in a very strong centralized bureaucracy or a very strong center which resulted in almost a divorce between, I'd say, political process or the electoral process and policy making. So as a result, we have political players in political spaces relying on highly emotional and symbolic issues rather than actual class or caste-based inequalities that have, prevented the march of India towards further democratization process, which is, an idea, of course, would be the idea of mobilization along identity issues. For example, in Maharashtra, which happened by Mr. Bal Thackeray and Shiv Sena, actively participating in the rioting in Bombay in 1993, where this idea of the mob being a sovereign unto itself was not only was practiced, but was implemented with utter efficiency and I would say brutality, mobilizing angry, determined crowd. Has become a powerful currency of political transaction in India. So it is in this context of state capture by the elite, which has continued forward onto colonial time, from colonial to post-colonial India, has been the somewhat meager success of the Indian Constitution being able to serve as a sort of a shield against further marginalization of Indian Muslims and Dalits. So that is important to be kept in mind while we discuss the successes and the failures of the Indian Constitution, because it is not divorced from the idea of changes in political economy across India, which has resulted in strengthening of the colonial constructed identities.
Totally concur. Informative answer, I must say. Thank you very much. So yeah, the last speaker of today's webinar is Asif Aqeel. He is an amazing journalist, researcher and activist, Deputy Director of the Central for Law and Justice from Pakistan. Sir, may you proceed now.
Very much, and I'm really pleased to have joined this forum. It was really wonderful to hear from Abhay and then Anubhav Singh and others. Unlike the countries like Nepal and India, Pakistan is a different case in one sense. It's an Islamic state. So its constitution declares that there's only one division in the constitution of Pakistan. And that is based on religion. So that's giving the word Hindutva. But here you don't have to have that thing here. It's clearly the state which is religious. Pakistan is the second largest population in South Asia. And I'm proud that we have a very high population growth rate, better than now Bangladesh. And in Pakistan, it is the third constitution that we have now. The first was in 1958, and then was 1962, and then after the fall of Dhaka, it is the 1973 constitution. And its Pakistan's population is about 230 to 40 million, and non-Muslims are only less than 4%. And interestingly, there is only one type of minority that the Constitution of Pakistan recognizes, and that is religious minorities. Technically, 4% minorities, and none of them is even more than 2%. Hindus are close to 2%, Christians are less than 1.5%, and others are even negligible. So Pakistan is predominantly, not just predominantly, it's basically 97% in 100 are Muslim. So we don't have a very big number of minority. And then this is, I think, a problem. Pakistan is a multicultural, multilingual, multi-religious country with a very conservative now outlook. But then there is only minority in which is religious. There are, and that's why, because I come from the Christian community, maybe that could also be the reason I am more focused on the community, our communities. Thankfully, Pakistan do not have any large organized groups working against non-Muslims, like in Hindutva, repeatedly, as it was said. We don't have any group like this. But on the other hand, we can have anytime mob in the name of religion be gathered. So there is no need for any organized group. Anytime they can organize themselves. The good thing is the Constitution of Pakistan respects human rights. Constitution of Pakistan is actually built on the fundamental human rights. There is right for association and all other rights, except that, and even about religious freedom, Article 20 is, interestingly, we recently realized that it allows propagation of your faith, whatever you believe. But in practice, only Muslims are allowed to propagate. The very small Pakistani minority, they are every other day told by their colleagues, their neighbors who are Muslim, that kindly convert and go to Jannah. So for the invitation to Jannah is very common in Pakistan for non-Muslims. But I would say that there are a few cases of forced conversion, which are, if we go deeper, they are less type of force, but more there are invitations and probably might be of economic opportunities. But at least it's not that much force. So that also need to be reviewed. Pakistani do not like secularism. And to be honest, I also, the only thing is, which is problematic, is when the rights of the smaller groups or small non-Muslim groups is entrenched, and then they face persecution. What I in the recent years have realized that in Pakistan, the laws against religious minorities were not being made for at least for the last 2 decades. All the laws, what we now claim are discriminatory or against the religious minorities, they were made by General Ziaul Haq. And that was a time when everyone knows about this Soviet war and Pakistan's role in that. And I think that was the most pivotal time. And as Anubhav was also pointing out to that period, I think even in India, even including the Babri Mosque and other such incident, I think this Afghan-Soviet war fought based on a religious divide. I think that played more havoc in Pakistan and even in India, because in Pakistan, people were being mobilized in the name of religion. And now we all know that it was not very religious, and Pakistan's political elite also realizes that it wasn't that religious. So I think when Indians look at their religionization of the state, they should also look how the neighboring countries were doing back in the 80s. That's I think I want to point out for Hindutva as well. I think that has a role in it. But Pakistan's problems as compared to India, in Pakistan, we feel, or people often quote, when we say that it is not a good atmosphere for religious minorities. And they said, look, you are not living in India. Minorities are being killed, they are butchered, they are lynched. That's very true. In the last 10 years, I cannot recall, except one or two lynching of non-Muslims. There have been more lynching of Muslims in the name of religion, but not of non-Muslims. And I'm very, you can say, thankful that somehow Pakistan is only very small minority of Hindus. And thankfully, Pakistani Muslims have not taken impressions from India that they are killing a lot of Hindus, lynching them. Here, it is still not known, and I think Pakistan has improved in terms of religious freedom. Back 30 years back, I think it was very difficult for us to talk about religion. Today, Pakistani Hindu minorities are more and more coming in public view. Before that, they were often hiding their religion, and that had been the case. And then one interesting thing about the Constitution of Pakistan is that liquor is prohibited for everyone in Pakistan except for religious minorities. And that's a separate story, that this liquor is being consumed by Muslims more than non-Muslims are allowed to have liquor. And in terms of religious freedom, I still think that other countries like India, where we have a lot of social ostracization of non-Hindus, but still people of other faiths can display and not think of having a Hindu publicly, particularly in Punjab. So I think what Anubhav pointed to social democracy, I think there is need more for religious tolerance. And also we have a good number of people, and it has been researched in India as well. Your name and your caste matters a lot. Discrete in Pakistan. A lot of its structure has been due to Islamization, due to industrialization in Pakistan. Population was rural back in 1947. Now, almost 60 or less% of the population is living in villages. So I think because of these dynamics, caste has been badly hit. But then in 2019, we conducted a research on sanitation workers in Lahore, which is the second largest city in Lahore, and how come they are Christian and why they are Christian, why others are Muslims are not in this occupation. So our research, shame and stigma in sanitation, in our research found that there is a hidden bias. One is on the state's part, because clearly those jobs where there is no restriction of religion, they also look at the names of Christians, and if you are not good educated, if you are below the school matriculation, you would be expected to do a job of sanitation. And until recently, from Rangers and Pakistan police and other forces and such departments, they were asking that those who want to apply for the job of sanitation, they must be non-Muslims. Our understanding is that this is not exactly per se religion. This is the caste system, and Pakistan doesn't realize that it has inherited the caste system. They think that non-Muslims should be doing, and our understanding is actually the caste is re-articulated in religious overtones. This finding is given in our research, Shame and Stigma in Sanitation. For example, they think that this is the work is dirty, and those who have to perform their prayer 5 times a day, they can't perform this job. And they also think that those who are born for this job are non-Muslims, which is not an Islamic idea. This is more related to the caste that you are born with some occupation. So this is something different is taking in place in Pakistan. And clearly our understanding is that Islam doesn't prohibit Muslims from eating food or drinking or shaking hands with the people of the book. But in Pakistan, many Muslims avoid eating and drinking with Christians, despite the fact they are people of the book. So this is the caste system which Pakistan has inherited. And that's why I think the only the place where we could get some understanding was from the books written by missionaries in the even after 1947. So we understood that there was a caste system. Otherwise, in Pakistani academic circles, I think was being looked from the religious perspective. And if it is not religion, then what else? So I think Pakistan needs to review how much caste is inbuilt and inherited from the Indian heritage. And even 2008, Pakistan at the UN Human Rights Council said that there is no caste system in Pakistan. Pakistan is an Islamic state. So, but the fact is that if there are a lot of people from Dalit caste, and even Pakistanis don't understand what Dalit is, by the way, as you have been repeatedly saying. So we are trying to introduce this concept that there is something dedicated towards Dalit in the Indian caste system, and this Pakistan should get rid of. As we have discussed about caste and other thing, I think if there be, yes, historically the Constitution of Pakistan, I think should have been leading to equality actually. But somehow we lost Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah in very early days. But Pakistan chose to have the constitution. If Pakistan had taken Jinnah's speech seriously, and this is very interesting, I say that Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah is only now the leader of non-Muslims in Pakistan because his August 11, 1947 speech is only quoted by non-Muslims. Muslims are not interested in it. They don't want to look at it because it says the things which Pakistani constitution does not support at all. So we are more follower of Jinnah than Pakistan's Muslims are. That would be another conundrum. I think caste and religion should be separated in Pakistan. Secondly, the ease of violence that can be committed in Pakistan, the state needs to work on it. Religious minorities are often poor. They're often coming from downtrodden castes. It's easier to commit violence against them. And it's also easier to manipulate their women. And it's easier to exploit them. So that exploitation is not difficult to be controlled. I think the state needs to take some measures to stop it. And I think
I agreed with you. Thank you very much. So for the concluding remarks, I would like to invite Sumbul Yousuf. She is an Associate Project Director at South Asia Research Institute for Minorities. Over to you, Sumbul.
First of all, I'm grateful to all our guests who spared their time for this important topic. And it was a very insightful discourse indeed. And we learned a great deal from all the speakers. I would like to summarize in a few words what we have learned during this. From Nepal, we had Ms. Kunjani Pyasi, who enlightened us about the constitutional rights of that the Nepali constitution actually assures and ensures equal rights to all, regardless of gender and caste and religion. But despite that assurance, the situation on ground, as she enlightened us, is very different. And insurance of social equality and protection against discrimination is often not protected. And as she mentioned that despite Constitution promulgating 33% of representation for women, there are only 9.3% of representation on ground. So she also highlighted the role of civil society, which is positive, but their political alignment creates problems and it curtails their effectiveness. Thank you, Dr. Kunjani Pyasi. Dr. Abhay Kumar highlighted very important intellectual points in terms of minority rights persecution, and especially in terms of the elitist mindset and elitist strategy of divide and rule, which is trying to pit one minority against other. And we agree that minorities are all minorities, whether Muslims and Dalits, and they basically have disadvantages in different areas if we speak about the state of India. So though a few Muslims and a section of Dalits have bought into the propaganda of Hindutva politics, basically what we are required of as minorities is unity of oppressed, as Dr. Abhay Kumar proposed. And that was very appealing, of course, and had very much weight, this argument. So another important point that also concurs with Anubhav Singh's argument as well was highlighting how the capitalist economy is actually playing its role in further marginalizing the minorities. So he talked about the chronic capitalism that India is plagued with right now, and how who is the enemy? The question is rightfully answered by Dr. Abhay Kumar, that it is the rich people who are exploiting the backward classes. But since Hindutva itself is funded by those capitalist funders, so it has to pose an external enemy, which is in reality the rich people, but they pose them as Muslims. So it is based in their philosophy that we need an external threat, and I think it's the philosophy of every fascist ideology, and it plays out the same way, that we have to create some sort of external enemy to create not only an internal unity, but also to consolidate our own power and power of the elites, actually. So it's a tool of exploitation, as Dr. Abhay Kumar rightfully pointed out. And one of the most important thing, or another important thing actually, was that a binary division between liberal politics and extremist politics is also not helping us, because we have seen in past that the secular politics have not helped the cause of minorities very much as well. So what we need to do is to dive in that and get out of that binary division and to see the reality of issues at hand. So it was very helpful, your analysis, Dr. Abhay. Anubhav Singh highlighted very deep analytical points, which were concurring with Dr. Abhay's analysis. And it, of course, talked about, Anubhav Singh talked about how capitalist economy is playing into the hands of Hindutva, and how it was simultaneous that we saw that the rise of neoliberalism was in line historically with rise of Hindutva, and how caste riots have been transferred into communal riots. So thank you for your insightful analysis. And he also pointed out how amazingly the world's largest democracy's population is in favor of a martial law and doesn't really want the civil rights accorded by the constitution, which actually shows the result of majoritarian politics being played out. So it is very sad and dangerous. And we hope that the efforts of civil society and the voices that are being raised, like these and others, are able to avert the dangers of such findings. Asif Aqeel joined us from Pakistan, and his analysis was very helpful in understanding the situation of minorities in Pakistan, where the constitution is based on religion. And although the constitution provides equal rights and guarantees freedoms, the situation on ground looks a little different. And the social, as we said about social democracy, that we need to work on social democracy, and socially people face discrimination. Though there are no severe violence cases, just like we see in India, like lynchings, luckily in Pakistan, we have a better situation. But we still need to work on providing protection to the minorities that are especially coming from the poor classes. So yes, I agree that mostly the minority communities are poor and are very much prone to be exploited by the rich class. And I guess it matches with the situation that Dr. Abhay Kumar and Anubhav Singh pointed out, that mainly religion is a garb, and exploitation is done by the landlords, exploitation is done by the capitalist class, and religion becomes a garb for that. So this factor plays out in Pakistan as well. So, and the question of caste was brought into light by Asif Aqeel in Pakistan as well, which is very much, I think, ignored. And we like to think that in Pakistan, there is no problem of caste, as we are, Islamic country. But as we see in Lahore, and this has been written a lot about and analyzed as well, that caste is very much ingrained in our society, and it plays its role, and it is given a garb of religion, but actually caste is in play. So I think overall the whole discussion was very much helpful, and we discussed how the disparity between constitution and the realities on ground. And this has been a great program in terms of furthering the discourse on the constitutional rights of minorities. And what we take from here, especially, is that the real threat to the rights of marginalized people are the people who are sitting in the elite classes, and basically they want to maintain their status. Thank you so much for all the speakers. We were delighted to have you, and we wish that you would continue to contribute to our efforts in this. Thank you from South Asia Research Institute for Minorities, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Sumbul. So, Anubhav want to highlight some points. Anubhav, go ahead, please.
Just to the point that Aqeel made, about the presence of caste. Again, like, this is not something very, this is not that something which has emerged just now. If we talk about pre-independence India, right, before the partition happened, if you've read Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, we of course know him as a great social reformer who did quite a bit for, bringing about communal harmony and unity. But if you read what Syed Ahmad Khan talked about the revolt of 1857, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan said in his response to British authorities that the revolt was actually not carried out by the Ashraf classes. Rather, the Ashraf classes were in complete solidarity with that of the British rule. The revolt was actually carried out by Julahas. Right? So for even, going back to what Sir Syed Ahmad Khan's point was, that caste has always been an entrenched part or rather the very building block of societies in South Asia. And one way or one reason that it has now gained so much prominence in India, particularly, and of course also in Pakistan now a lot of research is being done, but particularly in India, how this plays out is that, you know, the idea of affirmative action or the idea of what we call reservations was itself communalized by the Indian judiciary, in the sense that reservations were only meant, you know, classified or meant to be for Dalits, and by Dalits it simply meant Hindus, right? Ignoring the fact that there are Dalits who are Muslims, who perform almost the same kind of work that many sanitation workers are doing in India. In India, they are called halal khor. Those Muslim workers are called halal khor. And there is absolutely no provision, again, for their representation, either at the political or at the social level. Very recently, this idea came up about, you know, recognizing those Dalit Muslims also as part of the, you know, scheduled castes, which have been mentioned in the Indian Constitution under the presidential order. And the Indian state objected to it, saying that since they had been converted either to Christianity or to Islam, that, you know, the discrimination had stopped, which is absolutely not true. That discrimination is ever present, whether people have converted to Islam or Christianity. And that happens on either side of the border. So this idea of a hegemony of what you may call the Brahminical system, or you may call what the Ashraf class prior to pre-independence was, independence was focusing on, rather, was that, you know, there is a great book which has been written recently by one of the professors of Delhi University, where he makes this point that there was far more solidarity between upper caste Hindu elites and upper caste Muslim elites than there was ever between lower caste Muslims and lower caste and upper caste Ashraf classes. So that is a fact that must be kept in mind, that the idea of religion is just a hogwash. You know, the idea of religion is just a hogwash to actually perpetuate this discrimination, which has been almost happening in South Asia for more than 1,000 years. Right? It has never been about religion. Thank you. That was what I wanted to point out.
Thank you, Anubhav. So this concludes the webinar. Thank you all for joining and attending the webinar. I appreciate all of you. We hope we have learned and pleasured this webinar today. Until next time, take care and stay safe.